other girlfriend. And we're going to release these birds, and as they release, you know, we're going to think about Kim, and we're going to think about this family. You ready? On the count of 3, we're going to lift them up. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead.
That was very close.
So, I had so many words to describe her, but to me, she's so precious. The word is precious. She's just so precious. And I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I'm sad. I'm hurt. But I don't feel she left. Like, I'm not like, oh, she's not here. Because, like, the physical, somebody told me this the other day. Whoever told me this, make sure I give you credit. But.
Sup, sobers. So, the footage you just witnessed was actually parts of the memorial service that was held for Kim Porter. And if you ask me, Diddy doesn't necessarily seem like a guy that just lost the love of his life, quote unquote. Kind of makes you wonder why. Well, maybe because in late September of 2024, a 59-page book, littered with typos and definitely overpriced, reached the top of the Amazon bestsellers list. This book has been one of the most talked about, controversial pieces of literature that's hit the shelves in years, literally igniting a flame of speculation that continues to grow stronger and stronger with each piece of information that gets released. And there's no end in sight. But Kim's Lost Words, which is the book that we're talking about today, has been one of the most talked about books that has hit the shelves since September because of the wild and crazy accusations that it makes regarding Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Brother Love Combs, and the allegations that keep on coming, starting with those of Cassie Ventura. Now, if you're not familiar with the allegations made by Cassie Ventura, I actually go over that in a previous video titled The Diddy Conspiracy, How the Diddy Case Began. I'll link that in the description as well. I've got a whole playlist with all my Diddy videos, but that one explains a lot more about the Cassie allegations. But that's one of my all-time favorite episodes I've done so far, just because it's truly wild and the information in there is interesting and very relevant. So if you haven't watched that one, I'd recommend watching that one. It'll lend to this video for sure, but anyways, this book, supposedly by Kim Porter, is full of allegations, and these allegations leave us with an even darker image of the music executive, especially if we take the words that are written in this book at face value, that being that they actually are Kim Porter's words. Now, obviously, the real writer of this book is not Kim Porter because, well, in 2018, after experiencing flu-like symptoms for about 4 days, she was found unresponsive in her own home, and the official coroner's report came back saying that she passed away from natural causes, that being lobar pneumonia. Now, the writer of this book is said to be Jamal T. Millwood. Already, right out the gates, that's a very interesting piece of information, because Jamal Millwood was actually a pseudonym that people who conspirize about Tupac still being alive, they say that he could still be living under the pseudonym Jamal Millwood. So when this book comes out and Jamal T. Millwood is the author of said book, people are like, who is Jamal Millwood? So everybody looks into it and realizes that this is an possible pseudonym for Tupac, and it ignites controversy, wondering, okay, did Tupac have something to do with this? But no, the actual author of this book is a Caucasian man named Chris Todd, and he's a known investigative journalist who typically reports on more conspiracy-style stories. He's got a really big story that he's done on the O.J. Simpson case. He's done a couple of other bigger stories, but all of them seem to be tied to cases that have some sort of controversy or mystery behind them. Now, what he claims is that he was given a flash drive, and this flash drive contained not only videos, but different broken random texts that Kim Porter was working on for an upcoming book in which she was expected to reveal all in relation to her time with Diddy and what she knows about his criminal enterprise and his criminal... I don't even know, just the stuff he was doing. But like all good investigators, he keeps his sources a secret, and the question of whether this flash drive or these videos or pages actually exist is kind of up in the air. We kind of have to take him at his word on this one. So reading through this memoir, I was not only completely shocked at a lot of these allegations made in the book, I realized how truly similar almost everything in this book is to the allegations made by Cassie Ventura and her story in time with Diddy. I went into this reading thinking that there's no way that this is the true words of Kim Porter herself, especially since it was released 6 years after her passing. It just seems random. And honestly, the timing of the release of the book couldn't have been any better, because with Diddy then getting arrested shortly after that, people speculate that this book had something to do with that this book opened up investigations and got the ball really rolling to where they finally arrested him and started this whole string of indictments. But the question remained, was this really Kim Porter's real lost words? The people who were doing the reading of the book, some people that analyzed the book, talked a lot about how just the voice, the speech, the way that she wrote, there were certain things in the book that actually gave credence to the fact that it actually might have been Kim Porter. However, Kim Porter's best friend, Kimora Lee, and her stepsister, her name's Tamia Love, they both are not necessarily convinced that these are the actual words of Kim Porter. They already believe that Diddy had something to do with her passing, but they're not convinced that this book was her actual words. Her sister is super active on social media. She's constantly asking for them to reopen the investigation, and she's constantly providing theories and ideas as to what she thinks happened, because she does not think that there was a natural explanation to what happened.
World know what you did.
Wow. See, listen, Kim Porter wants to let the world know. So do you believe that this is what we want to know? Everybody want to know. If any questions that y'all want to ask Kim Porter's sister, please make sure y'all ask.
Please.
Do you believe that P. Diddy has something to do with your sister's untimely death?
Then you see it was on the news. You acting like you trying to get in there. Please, you already know what happened to him. That's why you all on the news acting like you trying to get in there too. Yeah, please. You killed her. That's why you couldn't even go back in there.
And the same thing with Kimora Lee. In fact, she denounces the book completely, but she still believes that something nefarious happened to her best friend, Kim Porter. Adding even more fuel to these allegations is the unexpected passing of Erica Kennedy. She wrote a fictional book that was loosely based on possibly P. Diddy and Cassie Ventura, and kind of describes a young girl trying to break into the music industry, and she gets tied up with this big music mogul. And it's a fictional story, but the ties are very close to Diddy and Cassie Ventura. Even crazier is that Erica Kennedy ends up mysteriously unalived, and nobody has any idea what her cause of death is to this day. According to the lost words, this memoir was a last-ditch effort in order to protect her children from this monster that was Diddy. She had 4 children with Diddy, and she didn't know what would happen to him if she wasn't around to protect him. And so according to this memoir, she wrote these books to make sure that if anything happened to her, that at least Diddy would be exposed for who he truly was, and that would give her kids more of an opportunity and more of a chance to escape that situation. Even before the release of this memoir, Kim Porter was supposedly writing a book, and she was going to be exposing everything about Diddy and the secret life that he lived behind closed doors. So, is this memoir the true inspired work of Kim Porter's last words, her last-ditch effort to protect her children from the monster Diddy? And was it enough for him to silence the mother of his 4 children? Well, let's check it out. Welcome back to another sobering story with me, DJ Petrovsky. This video is sponsored by, well, me for right now. So if you're a sponsor and you're looking to sponsor somebody, or if you know how I can secure some good brand deals or sponsorships, then hit me up, drop a comment, let me know, because I'm trying to figure it out. Second order of business. Here on Sobering Stories, we talk about substance abuse, addiction, and the crimes that they leave behind. And last week we talked about Brittany Murphy, and that was truly a crazy case. And one of the main reasons I decided to cover that case was because Brittany Murphy was being compared to the passing of Kim Porter because of the odd similarities between the two, just the strange circumstances surrounding everything. And on top of that, there's allegations that the FBI is opening up cases into these different passings because of recent information, videotape leaks, and just different things that have come out that have alerted the feds that there's a lot more going on behind closed doors when it comes to Sean P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Brother Love Combs. Most notably, Aaron Carter, Brittany Murphy, Kim Porter, and the hospitalizations of not only Albie Schur, but also Jamie Foxx. They all seem to have some sort of link back to the diddler. And with more and more stories coming out each and every day about Sean P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Brother Love Combs, and all the different allegations and accusations against him, it's seeming more and more possible that these allegations are true. And honestly, that we've really only hit the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the Diddy case. Now, I really wanted to talk about Kim Porter because, just like Brittany Murphy, her case just doesn't make much sense. And there is a lot of things to suspect that there may have been foul play involved. And when you consider who possibly had the motive to eliminate someone like Kim Porter, then it becomes extremely obvious that the list of suspects in this story isn't very long. The story of Kim Porter is one that truly encapsulates what it's like to be with a partner who is completely addicted to substances, is very abusive, and unfortunately is the father of your children and someone that you love. Their relationship was on and off starting in 1994 and didn't end until 2007, where Kim would finally end the roller coaster that was their relationship and take back control of her life and do everything she possibly could to make sure her children were safe. According to this memoir, the videotapes and the files contained on this flash drive was her security deposit to making sure that Diddy didn't come back and try to get her back and lure her back into the same manipulative relationship that she had been a part of for so long. Now, before we get knee deep into this memoir situation, I wanted to just briefly talk about Kim Porter herself. And surprisingly, for somebody as big as she is, there was not that much information, at least not compared to other cases I've researched, about her life, her personal life, what she was involved with. It probably is because either a lot of it is under wraps because it's being seriously investigated right now, or the other likely reason is because Sean Combs kept it under wraps. He didn't really allow much to get out about her. He controlled everything. He was a control freak. He controlled what the media saw, didn't see what they said about certain people, and he certainly controlled Kim in a way that kept her kind of out of the public spotlight. But what we do know is that Kimberly Antoinette Porter was born December 15th, 1970 in Columbus, Georgia. Kim grew up in the Columbus area, and she went to Columbus High School, and she was a debutante in 1987, and I've heard that word before, but I had no idea what it meant, so I had to look it up. So I'll tell you guys what it means if you don't know. But a debutante is essentially a kind of like a celebration or a ceremony, maybe like it's kind of like a party. I would kind of say it's similar to like a quinceañera, but obviously a little culturally different. And this is something that stems from Europe, so it's more of a European tradition. Back in the day, it was a ceremony where they would present a young daughter who was now of age, essentially an adult who was ready to be married, and they would present this daughter at a party so that all the eligible male bachelors that were looking to get married could see who's the newest item on the market. So that was kind of the origination of this debutante thing. Nowadays, it's not so much like that, obviously, but they still host these parties where it kind of just symbolizes a young lady's entry into adulthood. It's kind of like a celebration of like, you are off, you're on your own, and you're ready to start paving your own way on your own journey. So that was in 1987, and supposedly she graduated in 1988 from high school at Columbus High School. Fun fact, who doesn't love a fun fact? Kim Porter actually went to Columbus High School with Dallas Austin. Now, Dallas Austin is the famous producer who made the movie Drumline, and the movie Drumline is actually based on Dallas Austin and Kim Porter's relationship that they had throughout high school. The two stars dated all throughout high school. They had matching BMWs. They saw Purple Rain 15 times plus together. They were even prom dates. How cute is that? This is a fact that we will tie in a little bit later, so hold on to that one. Kim began modeling at a super early age, and after she was done with high school, she moved to Atlanta so she could expand her horizons for the modeling industry. Obviously, Columbus wasn't the spot, and so she moved to Atlanta where she could hopefully start getting more modeling gigs and start to take off on her career. She worked a few random modeling gigs, and then she was actually picked up by Elite Modeling Management, And then from there, she picked up and moved to New York City because she was starting to work these super high-profile jobs working for companies like Tommy Hilfiger, Sean John, and Pantene. She also got her start with acting around this time. She was featured on The Cosby Show, and then she was also featured in episodes of Wicked Wicked Game. I haven't really watched much of either one of those shows, so I wouldn't know, but she started on her acting career. By this point, Kim's modeling career was expanding. She was acting. She was starting to mingle with wealthy elites in the entertainment industry, and it was around the same time in 1988 that she actually met Albie Schur. The two of them would start dating, and then by the next year in 1989, the two of them would be married, and in the same year, they would actually have a son. His name was Quincy Brown. They named Quincy after Albie Schur's longtime mentor, Quincy Jones. However, as quickly as it started, the relationship died, and the two were divorced by 1991. Kim would continue to find roles, acting and in music videos and just kind of jobs here and there, up until she was introduced to Uptown Records by Andre Harrell, and then she began working at Uptown as a receptionist there. And this is at the same time that Diddy is working at Uptown Records underneath Clive Davis, and Clive Davis is showing him, the tricks of the trade, so to speak, and kind of getting Diddy off on his big start as a music producer. Obviously, the two would mingle in the same circles at Uptown Records, and then by 1994, they would actually start dating. And this would spark nearly a decade of on and off relationship stuff between the two of them. This seems to be where a majority of the speculation from this Kim's Lost Words memoir comes in, and it starts to talk about kind of the beginnings and the fall into this darkness of Diddy and how he became this monster that we all see today. Now, in the memoirs, Kim talks about how Diddy had started Bad Boy Records. He'd found artists like Craig Mack. He'd signed Biggie to the label. And she talks a lot about, just the success that was going on with Bad Boy Records at the time and just how electric it was to be working at the company. One of the things that she talks about in this memoir that ignites tons of controversy is the fact that she overhears Diddy talking with someone about his plans to take out Pac and to take out Biggie. She acts like she doesn't hear what he was saying. She acts like she didn't hear it before she walked in the room, and then even after the fact acts like she didn't hear it. And later on, he calls her in her office and tells her how much he appreciates and how much it turns him on that she's so loyal to him that she said nothing about it. And really, she didn't say anything because she's pretty scared of him and she didn't know what he would do. She thought if she said anything or stood up to him in any way, it would be bad news for her. So already there's tons of speculation because of Keefe D's interview where he talks about how he was directly involved with the hits that Diddy had put out on Pac. This leads to even more speculation as to whether Diddy was involved with these two crimes, the unaliving of Tupac and Biggie. Now, not only does she talk about this, but she talks about how Diddy had plans to continue to fuel this East-West rap beef that was going on between Tupac and Biggie. Because after Tupac was, shot in the recording studio and was in the hospital for multiple days, he obviously already thought that Diddy or Biggie had something to do with it, and after figuring out that Biggie didn't have anything to do with it, his sights were really set on Puff. The beef between Puff and Tupac was pretty serious at that point. They had a track that Biggie had recorded that had nothing to do with Tupac getting shot, but the track was called Who Shot Ya? Puff decides that this is the perfect time to release it because of course people are going to think that it was a track written about Tupac. Of course they're going to think that this is just fueling the beef more and more. And that kind of beef, though it doesn't make sense, makes dollar bills, y'all. According to this memoir, there's actually more beef that goes on between Diddy and Pac over, partners that they were with and who's bigger, just stupid stuff like that. But it kind of just goes more into behind the scenes possible drama that Kim Porter allegedly saw with her own eyes and experienced firsthand. Pac and Diddy already had some pretty serious beef with each other, and so there was obvious motive for Puff to get rid of Tupac because of that. But why get rid of his number one selling rapper on his label, Biggie? It just doesn't make sense. This memoir alleges that Biggie and Tupac were not only planning to leave their labels and try and fight for their own publishing rights to their music, but Biggie was planning on leaving Bad Boy for good and possibly starting a new record label with Tupac. This is all alleged speculation. There's no confirmation as to whether these guys were actually planning on this. There is a lot of talk that they were really upset about the fact that they weren't making much money because they were working for these record labels that were basically taking the money that they were owed because they were signed to these deals. Allegedly, Kim Porter says in this memoir that Biggie's no longer on Diddy's side. If he wants to leave his team, if he wants to leave Bad Boy, then he doesn't have any obligation to protect him from anything that could possibly happen to him. The night that Biggie actually was taken out, Diddy didn't have anybody there to help him, watch him, wasn't there guarding him. It said that he was kind of intentionally just leaving him on his own. It just left a lot of people wondering, did he have something to do with it? Regardless of all this drama and all these allegations, Bad Boy Records would continue to grow. In fact, it'd probably reach its heights after this. After the passing of Biggie, that's when Diddy released that I'll Be Missing You cover of Sting's song, the one where he now has to pay Sting like $2,000 a day for the rest of time. You would think that this might be the end of Bad Boy Records and Sean Puff Daddy P. Diddy, Brother Love Combs. But no, with the passing of Tupac in 96 and the passing of Biggie in 97, Bad Boy was left to pretty much run the rap game, and they experienced some astronomical success. Then in 1998, Kim Porter and Sean Combs would actually welcome their first child into the world, Christian Casey Combs. But for unknown reasons, the two of them decided to split in 1999. Following this split, they would battle over custody of Christian, and eventually they would land on some sort of, co-parenting kind of a situation, and the two of them would go on to date other people, seemingly moving on. Now, at this time, Diddy was dating J-Lo, good old Jennifer Lopez, and Kim Porter had moved on. She was actually dating a guy named Shakir Stewart. Now, if you've never heard of Shakir Stewart, I really hadn't either, but he is another music mogul in the industry. He was responsible for bringing up artists like Sierra and Young Jeezy, and he's just a very similar, just music producer, has a really good ear and eye for what good music is and what's going to be popular and rising stars, basically. Now, there is a ton of speculation about the events that occurred, but one thing is for sure from numerous statements. Once Diddy found out that Kim Porter and Shakir were dating, he was absolutely pissed. He was so enraged. So much so that in the year 2000, it said that Diddy and Stewart were at L.A. Reid's wedding, and I believe it was in France or Italy. But after the wedding ceremony, Diddy paid Stewart a visit in his hotel room. He beat him with a chair, breaking this chair over him, and pretty much beating him within an inch of his life, leaving him bloodied and alone, pretty much just left him for, you know what. Diddy, of course, claims that these are all false allegations. There's no way I did that. No way. But Shakir Stewart's mom says otherwise. Even more tragically is in November of 2008, Stewart would actually be found with a self-inflicted wound to the head. Another situation that just has tons of mystery and interesting circumstances surrounding it. Did he have something to do with this too? And Diddy just can't seem to get himself out of scandals during this time period. While he's dating J-Lo, there's another scandal that happens at a New York City nightclub. In 1999, while he was in attendance with J-Lo, they were just at this nightclub. They were hanging out with rapper Shine at the time. Some of you might remember him. But at some point in the night, P. Diddy gets into an argument with a bunch of guys, and he decides to shoot off multiple rounds in the air, just kind of into the crowd to kind of calm the crowd down. One of these shots actually hits a girl in the face and leaves her severely injured. Diddy and J-Lo immediately blaze out of the club. They hop in a car. It's said that they run 11 red lights trying to get away from the cops. Once the cops finally catch up to them, they're arrested. They're all questioned to try and figure out what the H happened in this nightclub. J-Lo actually comes over to Diddy's place because she's super freaked out and she's worried that something bad is going to happen to him or her because of this whole incident. But Diddy just assures her, like, nope, I've got it all taken care of. Our buddy Shine, he's going to go ahead and take the fall for everything. And she's like, are you serious? Like, what if he turns on us? And he says, he's not going to turn on us. And this is all alleged in this memoir. But Shine himself says that that's what happened as well. He says that he was actually told that he was going to have to take the fall for it and that he wouldn't spend that much time in jail. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. He'd be out in no time. But that's not what happened. Shine was actually charged with the shooting as well as possession of the weapon. And because he isn't a native from here, he's actually from Belize, he was not only sentenced to 12 years in prison, but then he was deported back to his home country. So this situation did not go well for Shine at all. And in interviews that I just watched recently that were way later on, obviously, he talks about how this literally not only ruined his life, but his entire family's life, because rapping was his big break. And as quickly as he started coming up, he was shut right down. It just shows you how desperate Diddy can get and the lengths he'll go to cover his own tracks and keep his own image and his own freedom and well-being in check. Well, likely because of all this drama, J-Lo is like, yeah, no, I'm not about this anymore. So her and Diddy stay together for a couple more months, and then they decide to split. The official report says that she split with him because he wasn't faithful to her, which, as we'll see, is a continuous theme throughout Diddy's relationships, pretty much with every person he's ever with. In this memoir, Kim Porter allegedly says that the only reason Diddy even dated J-Lo, and this is from Diddy himself, was kind of like a spectacle, kind of like for clout. You know, these two superstars in a relationship. It was for the tabloids. It was for the media. It was just to boost his image even further than it was already. Kind of makes sense, to be honest. In this memoir, Kim also says that Diddy was hung up on Kim. He never forgot about her, and he always wanted to rekindle a relationship with her and kind of win her back. So his heart really wasn't ever in it with J-Lo. That's why he says it was really more of a spectacle. Speculation says that Diddy really didn't have any control over J-Lo because, well, J-Lo had her own money. J-Lo's her own woman. She's a spicy Latina. She's not going to take shit from Diddy. So if he can't control her, well, what is he going to do with her then? Diddy's MO is being able to control his partner and control the people that are around him. And if he can't do that with J-Lo, it probably isn't the right person for him. Like I mentioned at the beginning, Diddy claims that Kim Porter was his muse, his love of his life, the one that got away. He worked really hard during this time period after he lost J-Lo to win back Kim Porter. And the two of them already had a son together, so it made sense for them to try and work it out. In this memoir, it said that one of the main reasons that Kim Porter could never really get back with Diddy was because of some of the weird things that he was into in the bedroom. She just wasn't really about it. But he promised her that if she came back to him, that he wouldn't want to do any of that stuff, that it was all just experimentation. It was all just one-time thing, you know? So he promises her all these things, and for whatever reason, Kim Porter decides to get back together with Diddy, and in 2003, the two are a couple again. And the cycle of abuse would start up right away. And that's not only alleged in the memoirs, but that's also something that is talked about in multiple interviews that were done with Diddy's bodyguards, Roger Bonds and Gene Deal. They all talk about how Cassie Ventura is so striking for everyone because of the allegations that she's made and has filed, and the story that she's told that she experienced. But what people don't know, and according to these bodyguards, is that Kim Porter was literally the exact same story, just the precursor to Cassie Ventura. In 2005, the abuse would actually get so bad that Diddy would break her nose while they were out on this yacht party. Roger Bonds actually talks about how not only is this 100% true, a fact that he knows that happened for sure himself, but he also knows that Diddy would fly doctors and plastic surgeons out so that he could pretty much cover his tracks and make sure that what he did would go completely unnoticed. Kind of did it under the guise of him trying to be a sweet partner and make up for the thing that he did, but really it was just to cover his own ass. Talk about a narcissist. Not only is this something that was alleged in the memoirs, but it's also something that is alleged outside of the memoirs. This is something that people have said did happen. People that were close to Diddy. Now, in the memoirs, Kim talks about an experience where she came home and Diddy was actually holding some flowers, and she mistakenly thought, oh, he got me flowers. But he says, no, who are these flowers from? And the card on the flowers says, like, thanks for lunch. It was so great catching up. Talk to you soon, or let's do it again soon, something like that. And Diddy freaks out. He's asking her, who sent these flowers? Who did this? And she's like, oh, well, it must have just been the movie producer that I met with, because she was meeting with the movie producer about a possible movie role. And this sent Diddy over the edge. He completely lost it. He smashed the flowers. He started hitting things, going nuts, and freaking out about, who is this guy? Who does this guy think he is? According to this memoir, not only did Kim not get the roles that she auditioned for, but it said that this movie producer unexpectedly passed away from pneumonia as well. So I looked really hard to try and find out who this movie producer was. And so I looked through the names of every movie producer who passed from pneumonia, and I looked for anybody during that same time period. I couldn't find anybody other than the random unknown B-grade UK movie producer Simon Monjack that we talked about in last week's episode with Brittany Murphy. Unfortunately, his passing was very much around the same time period where Kim would have been auditioning for this film role, and he passed away from pneumonia. So it was kind of interesting that that was the only person that linked up, and I couldn't find anybody else that even remotely came close to matching that description. So was Kim Porter meeting with Simon Monjack for a possible movie role during this time period? I mean, it was before he was with Brittany Murphy, which is when he was exclusively taking care of Brittany and basically just managing her career. So maybe he was still working on different movies or possible roles. But I couldn't find any proof to show that that was the case. Interesting coincidence, right? The only other thing that I thought of was the only other movie producer that would have maybe even been talking to her around this time would have been Dallas Austin, because he was making the movie Drumline. The movie Drumline is based on their life and their romance, and so it was likely that he was just talking to her about the movie role. Maybe he was going to cast her for her own role in the movie. He didn't end up casting her for the role in the movie, but it honestly wouldn't make sense if he did. In my opinion, it very well could have been Dallas Austin that she was meeting up with, and not only that, but the two of them have a history. They dated in high school, so I could imagine this being a guy who would send Kim Porter flowers, even if it's only as a friend or a long-time romantic partner, something like that. But I could see him sending flowers like this, and I could see Diddy being extremely mad if it was Dallas Austin that was talking to Kim Porter. So I don't know. The connection, that's something that I put together myself. There was no proof to say one way or the other that they did. I would imagine that he consulted with her about the movie because it has a lot to do with both of them. Now, I was listening to an interview with Gene Deal, and he was talking about how there was an instance where Kim Porter and Diddy were fighting, and apparently Diddy was just wailing on her, beating her up. At some point, she was able to reach over and grab a corkscrew and just started slashing towards him, and she ended up catching him right on the wrist and kind of made a huge gash in his wrist. He was bleeding all over the place and was kind of a big deal. Diddy starts freaking out, crying about, you don't know what you just did. You don't know what you just did. You're messing with my livelihood. You're messing with our money. You're messing with my career. You can't do that. And just starts freaking out. Not only does Gene Deal say that he was there and witnessed this happen and saw how crazy it actually was, then Roger Bonds also talks about how he saw the scars that Diddy had, that the scars that were left on his arm, and he heard all the stories about it. So he's like, I know about the rumors. I can't confirm or deny them. But Gene Deal definitely confirms that she caught him on the wrist with a corkscrew and got him good. Now, this was a pretty intense moment, obviously for many reasons, but I'd say number one, because Kim was standing up for herself, and standing up for herself against Diddy was not something that typically happened. And I think this is the moment when Diddy started to realize he didn't truly have Kim under his control like he thought or like he wanted. And with a guy who's infatuated with controlling people, and he boosts his ego by controlling other people and just exuding that power over others, it would present itself as a challenge for Diddy, and likely that could be a reason why he was so infatuated with Kim Porter and wouldn't leave her alone, because he wanted to tame her, he wanted to control her, and he never was able to do that. One of the only ways that Diddy was really able to control her was anything having to do with the children. Not only did they have Christian, but now in 2006, they were expecting twin daughters. Maybe the thought of having more kids running around brought her the idea that maybe he would calm down, settle down, start being more peaceful, especially if they had two daughters running around the house. He'd want to be a good role model for them. But according to the memoirs, she was mad that this happened. He promised her that he wouldn't get her pregnant again, and unfortunately he did. In the memoirs, she kind of makes it seem like it's a bad thing, allegedly. One thing's for sure though, Kim definitely started to feel extremely trapped in this situation, especially expecting two twin daughters. And anytime she ever tries to leave, it just means trouble for her, her kids, and anybody she tries to date. It's said in the memoirs that before she gave birth both times, she had to engage in course with multiple partners to gain some sort of energy. It was some sort of energy ritual to provide the baby with ultra energy and the mother with energy to go through this birthing process. She said she did this for Christian, but then also had to do it again for the twins. And in the memoirs, this was kind of like the breaking point for her. She's like, I will never share my body like this again. I will never go back to this lifestyle again, and I want out. And the only way that she saw fit to get out to ensure that he wouldn't come back was to formulate this security deposit that she made, having these tapes, starting to write a book about her experience and the hidden secrets that Diddy had behind closed doors. And this was going to be her way out. This was going to be the reason that he would leave her alone and that he wouldn't be able to touch her because, well, essentially she was going to blackmail him into leaving her alone, her and the kids. This is when Kim describes putting her plan into action. This is when she realizes that Diddy has a vault where he keeps secret videotapes and just recordings of all of his experiences from the past with different famous celebrities and different people. And she decides that she's just going to make copies of these tapes so that she has her own proof of what was going on, and she has real hard evidence that this stuff was actually happening as opposed to just her word. According to Kim, Diddy would get so drunk and he would be so out of it on the prescription pain medication that he was on, because he was so far into his addiction at this point that he was always on painkillers. So she says that he would eventually fall asleep at night, and when he was asleep, she would sneak into the vault, she would take a few tapes out, she would copy those tapes, save it to a flash drive, save it to a hard drive, and then she would also save it to the cloud. And then she would return those few tapes and exchange them for a few more tapes until she had finally copied every single one and had all of the evidence that she needed. On top of that, she started writing her own little manuscript, her own little notes of just things that had happened and things that she wanted to make sure she shared with the world. And there's other people that corroborate that, yes, she did in fact have a book that she was planning to write. She did in fact have things that she was writing down in reference to Diddy that she was upset about, or things that he had done. And it was kind of something that she was just keeping in her back pocket in case she needed it. And thus the plot for the book begins. Kim would give birth to the twins in December of 2006. That same year, she probably got the absolute worst possible news that she could possibly get as an expecting mother. She found out that Diddy had been cheating on her with not only another woman, but a close friend of theirs. Her name was Sarah Chapman, and Sarah was actually pregnant as well with Diddy's baby. In July of 2006, Sarah would actually give birth to a baby girl, Chance Combs. 6 months later, Kim would give birth to their twins, Delilah and Jesse. Talk about a messed up situation, right? Kim thought so too, because this was the moment when she said, "I've had it. I've had enough." And so the memoir says one thing about why she left, but this honestly seems like more likely of a reason. I mean, he fathered a baby with another woman while she was pregnant with their twins. It's just absolutely mind-boggling, the balls on this guy. And if you thought that was bad, during the same period of time, Diddy was also speculated to have been messing around with Cassie Ventura. And there's even friends of Kim Porter who said that Cassie was starting to come around. She was starting to hang on Diddy a lot more, and she would rub it in Kim's face that she was kind of like the new item. Unfortunately, Cassie did not know what she was getting herself into, and I'm sure in hindsight she is kicking herself that she even acted that way at all. But she's young, she was dumb. We're all like that. When we're young, we're dumb. And not only that, but she was addicted to substances right out the gates with Sean Combs, because what he couldn't do with Kim Porter, he was seemingly able to do with Cassie Ventura. Now, in order to end things, Kim actually arranges a meeting with Diddy. She sets it up, and she brings along her friend Kimora Lee. When she goes, they meet up. She tells Diddy that she is ending things. Now, keep in mind, Kimora Lee doesn't believe this memoir is actually Kim Porter's real words, but she does think that Diddy had something to do with her passing. But Kim Porter decides to end things very abruptly for Diddy because he doesn't quite understand where it's coming from, although he should. She tells Diddy she's got copies of all of the videos in his vault. And he asks her, like, everybody? Like, you got Usher and Bieber and Lil Bow Wow and Will Smith? Like, you got them all? And she says, yeah, I've got everything. And you're going to leave me and our kids alone, or I'm going to release everything to the world and expose you for who you really are. And just like that, in July 2007, Kim Porter and Diddy would be done for the final time. And seemingly the two of them would move on. Kim Porter talks about how anybody that she tried to be with or she tried to date would inevitably just cause problems for her and them because Diddy was so amazingly jealous. And so she really only dated a couple of people. It's really hard to find anybody that she had dated after Diddy. She dated Jackie Long, but that's really the only person on there. And that was from like 2010 to 2012. So there's a whole like 6 years there where she might have just not even tried to be with anybody because she was scared that if she tried to be with anyone, Diddy would just come after both of them. The final part of this book, of this memoir, Kim's Lost Words, is just her recounting her realizing that she is getting sick and realizing that Diddy was responsible for her sickness. And then she even goes as far as to say that she texted some of her friends that he got me. It's in the end of this book where she talks about how she just really cares about her kids and she really needs this memoir and this book and these tapes to be released in order to protect her kids from Diddy, because she's really worried about what might happen if she's not there to protect them. And that's how the book ends. And like I said, there's like a huge gap between when her and Diddy break up and then it going to the end of the book where now Kim Porter is about to pass away. That initially struck me as pretty strange. I was not okay with that at first. I didn't really understand why there was a solid chunk of time from 2007 until 2018, a whole decade of time that was just left out completely, especially if she was supposedly working on this book after she left Diddy as a security measure to make sure he didn't come after her again. You'd think there'd be a whole lot more compiled than this 59-page book. Now, the memoir itself claims that she has a flash drive with a bunch of videos and a rough start, kind of like a diary, but it's just a rough outline of a book. It's not an actual book yet. Chris Todd himself says that that's what he received. He received a flash drive with videos and kind of a rough outline of a book. It wasn't a full book. It wasn't complete thoughts. There was no timeline. He kind of had to piece things together himself, and he had to do a lot of research to kind of corroborate the allegations made in this book. Though I don't think he did any research to corroborate any allegations, because a lot of it seems like speculative hearsay circling around things that did actually happen. But the things that actually happened didn't seem to have any relevance to her book. So I don't know. Initially, I was kind of not really feeling like this was a full, accurate, actual report from Kim Porter herself. But Chris Todd himself says that he for sure does have this flash drive. It for sure does contain these videos and the text that he supplied for the book. He says there's more flash drives than just what he has that he wasn't even given. People just weren't ready to expose those parts of it, I guess, or whatever. Chris Todd stands firmly 100% behind this book and says 100% that it is, in fact, Kim Porter's words. Now, the memoirs take a really long break between when Diddy and Kim Porter break up and when she's found unresponsive at her home. And that initially gave me a lot of trouble. I was like, what's with this long gap? And that gap alone gave me a lot of reservations in thinking that Diddy even had something to do with it, because their relationship was over in 2007. So why would he go back and seek vengeance on something that happened in the early 2000s and doesn't seem to be relevant anymore? But that's when I realized that from 2007 until 2018, Diddy was dating Cassie Ventura, who by all accounts is just a newer, younger, more controllable version of Kim Porter for Diddy. And if you're not sure about, the story about Cassie Ventura, like I said, go check out my Diddy conspiracy video, because I explain a lot more in that video about Cassie Ventura. They dated from 2007 all the way until, you guessed it, 2018, which happens to be the same year that Kim was found unresponsive. And on top of that, Cassie Ventura and Diddy did not end on the best terms either, because of all the allegations that she has against Sean P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Brother Love Combs. These allegations mimic so many of the allegations that were talked about in the memoirs. So it was after realizing this that I started to rethink, man, maybe he did have something to do with this. There's no way that the timeline is that coincidental. There's just no way. But I immediately became more intrigued as to why would this conspiracy theory white guy have any interest in risking his life and career to publish this book that people all say isn't even real anyways. What is he getting out of this? And people say it's a cash grab, and I mean, I guess it could be, but the book got banned on Amazon, so it's honestly not making any money. And he stands firmly behind the book, saying that it is truth and it's what Kim Porter wanted. So I don't know. Made me really wonder if this book was really her words. Then I found the story of Erica Kennedy, the girl who wrote that fictional book that supposedly was about Diddy and Cassie Ventura. And when she ends up unalived with no cause of death and complete mystery surrounding everything that happened to her, I was so convinced that Diddy had to have something to do with this. And then it hit me, you guys. I found another instance, just like in my previous episodes, talking about a celebrity handler.
You know, there's so many things that are put in Kim's head. You know, they bring influencers, like no one ever knew where Corey Gamble came from. No one in the fashion world knows where Gabby came from. These people were practically made in a laboratory, in my opinion.
I mean, it makes sense. These Hollywood celebrities, they just have so much influence and power. They're major influential people in the media. They have huge power to sway people's opinions if they do decide to speak up about something. So it just makes sense that there would be some sort of entity involved with these celebrities that would kind of make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're not saying things they shouldn't say. And if they are, that they're kind of corralling them back in or managing them in a way that will stop that from happening. Yet again, we've got ourselves another celebrity handler. Now, we've already talked about in my previous episodes Harley Pasternak, celebrity handler / personal trainer that's worked with hundreds of celebrities and has also been trainer for some of the mysterious celebrities that have passed away. This week, I wanted to introduce a new character to our story, and that is Corey Gamble. Now, Corey Gamble, before he kind of rose to fame, was a fairly unknown music executive, really didn't have much of a name for himself. He's mostly known now for his relationship with Kris Jenner and being involved with the Kardashian family, kind of like stepdaddy. Now, some of you know, but some of you don't, that the Kardashians and Diddy are extremely close. In fact, recent speculation is even saying that Kim Kardashian can be seen on lots of different videos that were confiscated during the raids of Diddy's mansions. And not only that, but Kim Kardashian might have even been the one that was organizing and orchestrating these parties for Diddy, like a party planner. Another piece of information that I found kind of interesting was the fact that Kanye West, once he got divorced from Kim Kardashian, his career seemingly took a pretty big hit. It's not like, his musical talent was gone or anything, and he was still saying the same crazy stuff he was always saying. But there's something about his splitting with Kim Kardashian that really hurt his career. With the way that they say Diddy is able to kind of pick people up, and if he doesn't want them in the industry, he can kind of push them out. It kind of makes sense that that happened to Kanye, especially if you think about how close the Kardashians are with Diddy. The influence there is really strong. It's almost like he didn't have a chance if you really think about it. And just 24 hours before Diddy's homes were all raided by the feds, Kim Kardashian unfollowed Diddy on all socials. Why would she do that? Why would she try to suddenly distance herself before the raids even happened? It just leads us to wonder what inside info she had. Nothing had even happened yet. Now, I know Kanye West says a lot of stuff, and we've got to take it with a couple of grains of salt each time he says something. But one of the things that Kanye West has been harping on for a long time is the fact that Corey Gamble is a celebrity handler. He was placed in the Kardashian family, and the reason he was placed there, he claims, is for political reasons. It's kind of a long story, but Corey Gamble, after he graduated college, started working for Scooter Braun, who started the SB Projects Entertainment Company. And the SB Projects Entertainment Company also worked with the DuPont company, and these two were both working really hard to try and get Hillary Clinton elected. And in order to try and sway people towards voting for Hillary Clinton, what is rumored is that this Corey Gamble guy was placed within the Kardashian family to start swaying them towards voting for Hillary, and then using their Kardashian family crazy influence to push through the mainstream media and through their own agenda and their TV show and all that, push Americans to start voting for Hillary, which would then benefit the DuPont company, Scooter Braun's company. And it just seems like essentially Corey Gamble was almost like a lobbyist for Scooter Braun to hopefully push them to be more outspoken in favor of Hillary Clinton. Now, people think this because before he married into the Kardashian family, Corey Gamble really wasn't anybody. Before this, he was really only known for his role working as a talent manager for Scooter Braun's company, SB Projects. While working in that role, he actually was appointed as Justin Bieber's tour manager. So he toured around with Justin Bieber, and the two of them got really close. So close that he called Justin nephew, and Justin called him uncle. And I mean, I guess if he's uncle, then who's daddy? Diddy? But right out of the gates, there's already tons of speculation about this Corey Gamble guy, because what he claims is that fresh out of college, he started working for Scooter Braun's SB Projects company, and Scooter Braun is only less than a year older than Corey Gamble. Scooter Braun started SB Projects when he was 26 years old, and that would make Corey Gamble 25, 26 years old as well. If he says that he started fresh out of college working for SB Projects, then he either went to college really late, or there's like 4 years of time that are unaccounted for, and we have no idea where this guy came from and what he was doing before, and how he got linked into the entertainment industry so easily. Not only is Corey Gamble tied to Diddy through Justin Bieber, because Bieber obviously spent 48 hours with Diddy and got a huge start working underneath Diddy, and obviously there's lots of allegations saying that he was likely abused by Diddy.
You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you tried to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But you never really got my number, so.
Right. Okay.
My number?
Yeah.
My number.
Yeah.
But Corey Gamble was also really close friends with Kim Porter and Diddy. Kris Jenner and Corey Gamble were almost like godparents. They helped Diddy and Kim raise their children. These two couples were obviously pretty close friends. And people are even speculating that Corey Gamble is likely the reason that Justin Bieber was brought over to Diddy's in the first place. Because, well, the connection is there. So this guy has very close ties to Diddy, just personally. He's very close with Kim Porter. He's very close with the Kardashians, obviously, being involved in the family. And he's really close with Justin Bieber. So his links with Diddy and everything just keep getting tighter and stronger. Now, like I mentioned before, Kanye's been saying that Corey Gamble's been a celebrity handler for years. And people really started to take him seriously when they saw photos of Corey Gamble being at the crime scene when Kim Porter was found unresponsive. So not only was Diddy there, but Corey Gamble was also there. And it's said that when Diddy was there, he was frantically searching, trying to locate Kim Porter's phone. He didn't seem concerned at all about the fact that she was passed away. He was really, really concerned about finding her phone. Tons of people that were there when that happened said that they saw Diddy looking frantically for her phone, and he just seemed like he was kind of on edge, not so much mourning the loss of someone that was really close to him. Also, why was Corey Gamble there? Like, I know that he's friends of Kim Porter, but there's a lot of friends of Kim Porter that weren't there. Kimora Lee was there, who's a really close friend of Kim Porter, and that kind of makes more sense. It doesn't necessarily make sense that he was there because it didn't seem like he was as close with Kim Porter as he was with Diddy. So he's speculated to have been part of the cleanup crew who went in trying to figure out if there's anything that they had to clean up after the fact to try and make it look like it was a natural passing. People say that he might have actually been there during the raids in his LA home as well. So it's possible that he had even more to do with all the things that are going on. And why is this guy always around when things are happening? Why is this dude always around? So his ties with Diddy are becoming more and more evident, and his ties with the Kardashian family, likely that has something to do with their amazing skyrocket to fame as well, because the Kardashians definitely didn't earn their fame all on their own. That is just a crazy, dramatic family that, for whatever reason, has been able to maintain their status. And likely that's because they are connected. Obviously, they're known to be connected with people like P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Brother Love, Sean Combs. Now, I firmly believe that Diddy had his hands in the handler business, pun intended. And the reason I believe that is because there's so many instances where Diddy has ties to these random people who seem to show up and are planted next to celebrities, and just very much seeming like celebrity handlers. Because somebody's got to hire these people. Who's hiring celebrity handlers? Who's sending them on jobs? Who's telling them what they need to do? Well, likely somebody in the entertainment industry who runs things and controls things and has amazing power and influence over not just the entertainment world, but other worlds as well. And Diddy was very involved with seemingly politics, music, Hollywood, pretty much anything having to do with the wealthy elite, Diddy had his hands in. So to think that he wasn't a part of this process of putting celebrity handlers into certain places, it wouldn't make any sense that he wasn't involved. I also believe there has to be politicians involved because they're the ones that have the most at stake, and they're the ones that are going to be guiding Diddy or whoever is controlling these handlers as to what direction they're trying to get people's minds. So I don't know. Corey Gamble definitely had himself wedged within the Kardashian family. He was wedged within the Diddy Kim Porter network. And with him popping up at all these different scenes, these crime scenes, it leads you to wonder, who is this guy? This would also maybe make more sense as to why he's with Kris Jenner, because the two of them are 25 years apart. And just to put that in perspective for you, when she was 35 years old, he was 10 years old. So I don't know what it is about this whole, wealthy elite and the whole preying on young people thing, but it certainly seems to go both ways. Now, I think I mentioned this before, but Kimora Lee, which was Kim Porter's best friend, was also present at the crime scene when Kim Porter was found unresponsive in her home. She is 100% diehard on the fact that there was foul play involved and that there's no way that this was just a natural passing. She was a healthy, young, beautiful actress who was super active and really wanted to be there for her kids. And so it didn't make any sense that she would suddenly fall ill with the flu and then pass from pneumonia as a perfectly healthy adult. And Jaguar Wright talks a lot about how there is poisonous substances out there that can mimic the symptoms of pneumonia. They can mimic the flu. They will make you feel really sick for a little while before you finally just don't get better.
Kim died from pneumonia, but there's the first coroner's report that said that she died it was ruled a homicide, and they found toxins in her body to prove that she had been poisoned. You know, they have poisons that create heart attack and pneumonia.
And we've talked about that in previous episodes. We talked about Big Homie CC and the whole cyanide thing. And there's also the possibility of arsenic doing the same thing. And those substances would be detectable in an autopsy, but if the autopsy isn't being done properly or is being falsified in any way, then we'll never truly know. The other thing Kimora Lee talks about is the fact that Kim was in fact writing a book. She says she had a book in the works, but what she says is that the book that was published, Kim's Lost Words, is not the book that she was writing. It's one of those things where you'd expect Kimora to know more than she does, especially if this book was a legit thing, but that's why it's kind of interesting that she doesn't think that these are actually Kim's last words. But she's not the only person who claimed that Kim was working on a tell-all book. There's an Egyptian writer by the name of Kola Bouf, and she is all over the internet talking about how she talked with Kim Porter on a regular basis. She spoke with her just days before she passed away. And she says even though she only met her one time, the two of them stayed in contact on the phone. They talked on the phone all the time. And so she says that her conversations with Kim would talk a lot about, writing, because Kola Bouf is a writer. And Kim Porter was an aspiring writer. She had plans to write a parenting book. She was trying to write a book about quitting smoking. And then she was obviously trying to write this book about her tell-all story about exposing Diddy. Kola Bouf doesn't believe that this memoir is the actual writings of Kim Porter either. She does say that she was in fact writing a book and that it was in the beginning stages and it was more of an outline, rough draft kind of a thing than it was an actual book. But she does confirm that she knows for a fact that Kim Porter was writing a book, a tell-all book, about exposing Diddy. However, like I said, she doesn't think that this memoir was that book. And Albie Schur, who also was mentioned in the memoirs, and was obviously Kim Porter's husband or ex-husband. He is another person who claims that this book is completely false and there's nothing to be believed in it, and he doesn't agree with the book at all. So much that he actually sent a cease and desist letter to Chris Todd and leaked that letter to the media to make sure that everybody knew that this book was false. Kim Porter's kids also say that this book is not based on any factual information and isn't actually her words. But the one thing that all of these people do agree on is the fact that there does need to be more investigation into Kim Porter's passing because they're not satisfied with the official coroner's report. And the final piece of the puzzle that I wanted to talk about with you guys is someone we've already talked about in previous episodes, and that is the notorious Ed Winter, famous celebrity coroner. And the reason I wanted to bring up Ed Winter is because the circumstances surrounding his passing are equally as troubling and strange. But Ed Winter did the initial autopsy on Kim Porter's body. Originally, the autopsy came back with a deferred cause of unaliving because they weren't really sure what exactly happened to her, and they were waiting for further examination, toxicology results, and other things to come back before they made a final decision. In the following weeks, Ed Winter continued to say that there was things that just didn't seem right and that he was calling for a more thorough examination of the body. That all seemed great until he was randomly replaced by another coroner. Even more troubling than that, 2 months after the official autopsy was released, Ed Winter ends up unalived as well. What was the cause? Natural causes. What the fart is happening? But this new coroner that replaced Ed Winter is actually the one that came out with the official autopsy report in January of 2019. Now, this report states that after being sick for 4 days with flu-like symptoms, being administered an IV and some other medications to try and get her better, she succumbed to lobar pneumonia, lung infection, and passed away. According to the memoirs, Kim Porter was actually trying desperately to get a hold of her normal physician, and she was not able to. She couldn't get a hold of him. She left messages, never got a call back. Frantically thinking that something was really wrong, she got a hold of Diddy and let him know, hey, I can't get a hold of our doctor. I don't know what's going on. So he plugged her in with a new doctor, which is this doctor that she ended up getting in contact with that administered the IV and the medications, but she didn't know who this doctor was. Even more peculiar is they contacted this physician later on to try and find out why he didn't answer Kim Porter's calls and why he didn't come to her aid. And he claims that he never got any phone calls from her. So it just leaves you wondering, what the fart? Now, one thing I was really looking hard to find was the toxicology report that they had done on Kim Porter's body. I couldn't find it because I'd have to request the actual autopsy report, but it is said that there was nothing found on the toxicology report. No substances, no alcohol, no nothing. And I honestly thought there would be something in there. But if the coroner was being paid to falsify this report, we wouldn't know if she had any toxins in her system or not. Because of course they're going to say it came back negative on everything. So needless to say, speculation obviously is saying that Diddy had something to do with removing Ed Winter from this equation. He had done autopsies on multiple different celebrities, including Whitney Houston, Brittany Murphy, probably most notably Michael Jackson. All of these cases are surrounded by very suspicious circumstances. And it just makes you wonder, did somebody get to Ed Winter? And then when he wasn't able to be paid off anymore, did they take him out too? And with all of these things fueling the fire against Diddy and all these accusations coming towards him over his possible connection to all these celebrity passings, things got even worse in 2021 when Kim Porter's house, which was owned by Diddy, was recorded as being broken into. One of the side doors was forced open. The house had been rummaged through completely. They weren't really sure if anything was taken. If they were looking for something, what were they looking for? Obviously, they didn't steal anything of value. What were they looking for? They must have been looking for something specific, possibly tapes, a memoir, something that Kim left behind. So, I don't know, it just makes you wonder, did Diddy send some guys over to collect these things? What was going on? But like I mentioned before, the thing that really got me with everything was just simply the timing of it all. Because from 2007 to 2018, he was with Cassie Ventura. Like I talked about in my other episode, Cassie, when she left Diddy, she had met him for dinner. Everything seemed normal. And then as he was dropping her off at her house, he actually forced himself on her, and she had to kind of force him off. But she was unsuccessful, and he took advantage of her, SA'd her, and then he left. So it's very likely that Cassie and Diddy did not leave on the best terms, and he probably knew what was coming his way when she left him in the same fashion that Kim Porter left him. He probably started panicking and immediately started trying to figure out how to save his own ass. And the only way to do that in his eyes was to just silence these people who had threatening information against him. I could imagine Diddy being very scared that Cassie was going to seek out Kim Porter and maybe combine forces in order to come after him and expose all these secrets. And Diddy just wasn't going to have that. And one of the most truly heartbreaking things out of the memoirs that I read was actually towards the end. And it was when Kim Porter was actually on the phone talking with Diddy, and she was asking him whether it was him that had made her sick. And she was asking him these questions very directly, kind of accusing him of doing this to her. And he just kind of shrugs it off and acts like he doesn't know what she's talking about. And she asks at the very end of it, "Gosh, Sean, did you even love me at all? Ever?" And he says, "The most important thing to me is loyalty." That gave me chills. I was like, dang, loyalty, dog, really? Which is funny coming from a guy who literally cheats on every single partner he's ever had and is one of the biggest, most unloyal pieces of garbage ever. He wasn't loyal to Biggie. He wasn't loyal to his own record label. He wasn't loyal to Cassie. He wasn't loyal to Kim Porter. He has not been loyal to literally anybody that he's come across. He's a complete monster. And yet loyalty is what is most important to you? Come on, get the fart out of here. So I don't know, you guys, the facts surrounding this case and the other cases I've talked about in previous episodes, it's just too much to ignore. It's too much to really think that it's all just coincidence. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if this memoir was real, whether it was fake. Is this really Kim Porter? Who's this Chris Todd guy? Did he have something to do with Kim Porter's passing? I don't know, but I want to know what you guys think, because you guys inevitably always have good perspective and interesting things to add, and I'm really curious to know what you guys think about all this and whether or not you think Diddy had something to do with Kim Porter's passing. So drop it in the comments below. If you don't subscribe to the channel already, subscribe to it already. Come on, what the fart are you doing? And if you haven't watched my other stories where I talk about the other celebrity passings and the other mysterious circumstances surrounding those, then I highly recommend you go check them out. And more importantly, I want to know if you guys think this memoir is fake or not, because I don't know. There's a lot of things that point to the fact that it isn't real. But then again, there's a lot of things that point to the fact that maybe it is real. And unfortunately, only Chris Todd really knows. And he's not buckling on anything. What we do know is that Diddy lived with substance abuse issues, very serious ones. He forced them onto other people. He forced his will onto other people, especially those close to him like Kim Porter and Cassie Ventura. The possibility that his crimes go way deeper and are way darker than what we know now is pretty likely, and I guess only time will tell. With all this information and all these cases coming out, it leaves us with more questions than answers. It certainly leaves us all speculating as to How deep does this Diddy thing really go? It's a true shame that Kim Porter's not here herself to tell us whether or not this book is BS. Hopefully this memoir doesn't taint her legacy as a beautiful entertainment icon, beautiful actress and model, and beautiful mother above everything else. But if you or somebody you know or just somebody near you is struggling or stuck in an abusive relationship like this, reach out. I'm on all social media platforms. I'm super easygoing and easy to talk to, and I'm always happy to help if I can. And I'm down to share my story if I can as well. If you don't want to reach out to me, there's tons of hotlines and other people you can reach out to. Just reach out. And if you know somebody who's struggling, reach out to them. But I really appreciate you guys sitting with me for this long, listening to Kim Porter's story, listening to whether or not this memoir was a bunch of BS or not. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week for another one. But until then, if you can't get enough sobering stories, or if you just want more of my Diddy episodes, I've got a whole Diddy Do It playlist I'll put right here. But I've got a playlist with all of my sobering stories, and most of those don't have anything to do with Diddy at all. Check those out too. They're really good as well. And YouTube seems to think that you're going to really like this video, so maybe you should click on that one. All I know is that I really appreciate you guys, and I look forward to seeing you next week. But until then, later, sobers.